we believe that the enemy has had a stronghold and a foothold in these treatment facilities for 50 years. He's had a foothold there, and it's time that we break that.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Framework Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Engel, president of Southeastern University. Joining me is our co-host, Michael Steiner, SCU Senior Vice President for Advancement and Innovation. And we are privileged to have our amazing guests with us today's show, Ali and Lance Lang. Ali and Lance are the co-founders and co-CEOs of Hope is Alive Ministry. Love your organization, an organization dedicated to transforming lives impacted by addiction. I want to start the conversation today. Faith has played a significant role in your journeys. To start our conversation, I'd love for you both to tell us a little bit about your testimonies, how you came to this, and all about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm a pastor's kid, second, third generation pastor's kid, small town Oklahoma, Baptist family for generations and generations. And so, was raised on the front pew of the church, could never remember a Sunday or Wednesday morning and night that I wasn't there, did all the typical things, somebody would do in that environment. But also was naturally rebellious. So PKs go one of two ways, right? They completely conform or they go the other direction, and I was the other direction in every single way. And so, Dr. Engel, when it comes to faith, I always say I found my faith in a rehab center, coming off of a 50-pill-a-day drug addiction that had destroyed every aspect of my life for a decade and wreaked havoc on everyone that loved me and everyone that was close to me. And I was born and raised in faith, but until you make it your own, it's just my mom and dad's. And I don't know that you oftentimes make it your own until you get to that place of desperation. Yeah. When you're, whether there's a foxhole or a life-altering moment or trauma or whatever it is. And so there I am, 27, 28 in rehab, and I believe I met Jesus for myself for the first time. And the most transforming thing in my life has been that I found every bit of pain and misery that I went through, God was willing to use it for good and to use it for my future. And so in those moments where you realize maybe I have some hope for something else, I clung to that faith. And so much of what I grew up with came into focus, in that place. Train up a child, all that stuff, it makes sense and it works. But it became my own. And that's really my story of faith and been trying to spread that message of sobriety and faith and hope and a future for the past 12 years. But Allie's journey is a whole lot different to faith, and I'll let her touch on that.
Yeah, I was born and raised Catholic, went to 12 years of Catholic school. And so when I met Lance, it was really my first introduction. Whether it had been introduced to me before or not, I don't know. But it was really my first introduction into a personal relationship with Jesus. The problem was the personal relationship to Jesus was also connected to somebody who was a raging drug addict and alcoholic. And so that was hard to frame in my mind. This view of he's a dedicated Christian, but we see sin all around us. And so really walking through that took me to a place of maybe a bit of unbelief, if you will. And then when he got sober, it was a couple years later, I went down to visit him when he was working at the treatment center that he had gone to, and he led me through the salvation prayer. And, I think ever since then, I have had a childlike wonder of my relationship with Jesus. Yeah. And I just I have such a desperate desire to learn everything again. Yeah. And that, I think, has been crucial. I hope that God has used me in some way through Hope is Alive, just through an innocence. I don't know. And so even walking through just different spiritual techniques and prayers, and I remember coming to Lance and saying, how do I pray without saying a formalized prayer? Sure, right. It just was different for me. And so it's been really, and I hope, and my prayer every day day is just to keep that childlike faith, because the wonder of what God can do that I saw him do through Lance's life, and I wanted it in my life, and I wanted it in our people's lives. And so just to be amazed by his works every day is been a great place to be.
Love it. So how do these stories, you guys now have built a really incredible initiative. Walk us through how you went from this into leading Hope is Alive. How did it get founded? How did God put that in your guys' path?
Yeah, and so I was kind of in the height of my addiction when I met Allie one night. And the story is what the story is. I was at a bar, and she was there too. And I met her one night, and our stories were pretty crazy when we met each other, and that kind of begot a lot more craziness until I got clean, and she took a break from me, understandably so, rightfully so, and I had a 4-year journey of building trust back. I think that's a good word for anybody listening. And trust takes time. Yep. Even though I was sober, had started a faith-based ministry, I was living in the house with these other recovering addicts, trying to walk them towards freedom. I had written a book. I was speaking at churches. Yep. She didn't trust me, and neither did her family, and understandably so. And so it took 4 years of that journey. Along that journey, I did step in, start Hope is Alive, and really felt like the niche that I was called to was housing and building these communities, with men where they would walk out their sobriety in this kind of next level leadership factory almost approach, where we were looking at every aspect, of their lives. And so I was doing that. I think we had 2 or 3 houses and 20 or 30 guys living in houses in Oklahoma City. Allie and I began to kind of talk to each other, making eyes again, going on some dates. And one day I got an email from her, and I think you should tell the story of what God was doing in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote an email August 31st. I will never forget it. And I said, I got to watch 2015. I got to watch Lance speak at every single small town Baptist church in the state of Oklahoma, and I would sell his books. They were $12, and I would watch as these mothers would come to him and they would talk about their sons, and we're like, yes, we have a great detox for them to go to, because this is kind of the spectrum of treatment. You go to a detox, and then we have a great treatment center, and then you can move into the Hope is Alive house, and your life is never gonna be the same. But then there were moms that came up that had daughters.
Yeah.
And we had no real solutions for them. And so one August morning, God was like, write this email. So I did, and I waited on it to hit send, because I really didn't want my life to change, honestly. Yeah. Like I was doing the deal. I was working in the business world. All the things. I had no idea what ministry was. And quite frankly, I didn't know if I was qualified.
Yeah.
And so I sent the email, and the next day we met, and he said, we're going to open a women's program. This was the vision, and you're going to go raise $50,000 to do it. And I said, no. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so we put together this crazy fundraising campaign, and we had 6 dinners, and 3 dinners in, we had like $1,000. Okay. No joke. And the next one we went to, a woman completely changed our lives, and she wrote a $50,000 check. And now we have, 6 women's houses, 25 houses across the country from Colorado to North Carolina, and God has just been with it and weaving the seed through every single piece of it.
Yeah. Wow.
Powerful story. And now you guys are doing, and I got to see at the facility of the Healing Center, and a beautiful facility. It's a former polo club. Can you walk us through? I think you have a model of how you think through healing, addiction recovery and different stuff, the different bases and stuff. Can you walk our listeners through your philosophy around that? What does that center mean, and how it fits with the overall strategy you guys are going?
Yeah, I'll give the overall, and then you can give the detail of the Healing Center. And so if somebody were to call Hope is Alive and they've got an addicted son, daughter, spouse, whatever it might be, we're going to tell them, well, you need to touch all the bases before for you to really fully heal and fully find sobriety. What's that mean? Well, first base, if you think about a baseball diamond, is the detox facility. You're going to go and be in a hospitalization program for 10 days and be monitored. Second base is inpatient treatment. And then third base is a Hope is Alive home. And this has kind of been our model for a decade, and we've been walking people through this and utilizing partners on first base and second base for a long, long time. And about 2 years ago, Allie and I just got to the point where we were kind of just sick and tired of what we were dealing with in that second base facility slot. It's highly insurance-based. It's highly medicine-based. And so people were going only to the places that insurance would allow them to go. They were being asked to leave before they were really supposed to be leaving because insurance wouldn't hold them long enough. They would walk away from these facilities with 10, 12, 15 different prescriptions. But more than anything, there was no introduction to the healer. And there was no spiritual relationship established. And so what we would find ourselves is hundreds of people coming into our homes on third base, and we're almost having to reprogram them, retreat them, start them back at first base. And Ali's always said it, like, where you go to second base sets the trajectory for the rest of your life. And so we finally just got to that place. And I think anything that's been created that's been amazing or great, somebody had a place of disgust where they were like, I'm sick and tired of what this model looks like. I'm going to create an iPhone. You know, what I'm going to make a burger place that does it faster. Like, you get to that place, and I'm not saying we're going to revolutionize that, but I do really believe this in my spirit. We believe that the enemy has had a stronghold and a foothold in these treatment facilities for 50 years. He's had a foothold there, and it's time that we break that.
Wow. That's great.
It's time that people, when they are on day 5 of their addiction journey, they get introduced to Jesus right then.
Yes.
Not 75, 90 days, or after 10 different stints at different treatment centers all across the country that are telling them the doorknob can be their higher power. They can tell them this medicine is going to get them off this drug, or telling them that this practice is going to help them. No. Jesus is the healer. And we want to introduce them to that from moment one. That's why it's called the Healing Center. That's the core of everything that we're doing. And then around that is a holistic program that Ali's writing, and you should give some context to that.
I would love to. So you've been there, Michael, and when you drive on the grounds, it's 75 acres, and the biggest vision is we want you to feel like the second you get there, you're safe. Because what about, God gives us a safety of his presence, and drug addicts and alcoholics have been living for so long in unsafe environments, and so the burden of the sin, but really, I mean, when I talk about that, I talk about the trauma, right? Like it is brokenness that leads people to addiction. It is nothing more than that. It is real trauma. It's heartache. It's unfortunate situations and circumstances, and so we want this place to feel like a biblical community. So like old times biblical community. So you drive on, and you're learning to do life together, where you're seen and you're known, and everything is confessed, and you're standing in the gap for one another, and you're holding each other accountable, and you're breaking bread together, and you're learning how to cook, and you're planning your own food, and you're doing it kind of all together. And that's the way I feel like we are made to be as humans. We are made to be surrounded. And so this is to feel like a community that you will always be a part of when you come to the Healing Center. So it's 45 days or 90 days if you choose to stay longer, and then you can go into our Hope is Alive houses and live for 18 months or maybe longer if it takes you longer. But this is really just a starting point. So we're doing it through nutritional transformation that we talked about. We're doing it for divine purpose. A lot of us feel like we don't have a place in the kingdom because we're not doing something occupationally for the kingdom. Does that make sense? But yet we all have an opportunity to change lives right where we're planted. And so teaching them that and giving them life skills to go out and meet people that they would never have the opportunity to meet before. And so we're doing this in a really holistic way. It's kind of backwards from the way that it's done currently. Like Lance said, where it's really heavy medication based, really doctors and physicians and all of that, where we're kind of doing it from more of a peer place. So knee to knee, I've been there. This is what God's done in my life. And also unpacking all of the stuff that we believe about God. And with drug addicts and alcoholics, there's been so many cries that we hear. Like, I cried out and he wasn't there, or he didn't show up, or it just wasn't the right time. He was always there. He was there holding your hand through it all. But ultimately, just getting to be set apart for that time is going to be really powerful, and then transition into our homes, hopefully.
Wow. I love the way you've set it up. I do want to talk a little bit about recovery because I know a lot of people think, recovery is just about stopping addiction. But real healing obviously goes much deeper. Addiction doesn't just affect the person struggling, but it impacts everybody around them. What do you wish more people understood, especially about loving an addict?
That's a family disease that impacts the entire family, in that it's not just the addict that needs to step into recovery or sobriety, but the entire family has to step into it with them. here's the thing. It doesn't mean it's fair. Okay? It's not fair.
Yeah.
But it's right.
Right.
If you want the best for your child or your spouse, then the whole family gets educated. The whole family goes to rehab in a way. Wow. The whole family steps into some type of community. And we realized this about, year 4 or 5. I wrote a book with my parents. And I would write the chapter, and they would write a parent's perspective at the end of the chapter. So it's almost like my version and their version.
Yeah.
The truth is
That's
somewhere
great,
in the middle. But it is a very different version of the story.
Right.
Because they lived it differently, and they had a different set of experiences and perspectives. And what I realized and what came of that is there was this massive untapped population of people who were not being served, not being educated, not being loved, not being put into community, so therefore unhealed, right? Yeah. Suffering, struggling.
Right.
And it is the moms and dads and brothers and sisters and the whole family around the addict. So we started these support groups called Finding Hope, named after the book that I wrote. And Dr. Engel, today there's over 60 Finding Hope support groups all across the country, English, Spanish, in person, online. And we really believe it's the fastest growing side of our ministry, maybe the biggest potential, because it could literally be worldwide. Right. And we want it to be in every community. We need one right here. We need a church here to have one, because we know addicts don't want to always step out and ask for help, but moms and dads are desperate for help. And they're in every community, and they're on the front pews of your church, and they're in your Sunday school class, and they're in your university. And that's a population we can help. We host those. They're free. They're located in churches. Jesus is the answer. To that question, I really believe that is the population that needs the most help. And I believe we're attacking it from all angles, right? From the addict and from the family. But we've talked about this and how it's impacted so many people. It is in our heart. Maybe as parents, we realize it more and more. But if there's 20 million addicted Americans, there are at least 40 million moms and dads. And we know there's an addict normally impacts the 10 closest family members. So that number is huge. That's the epidemic in our country that leads people to be shamed in silence, to not go to church, to isolated, and allow the enemy to be at play.
And that's one of the cool things I think at the facility you guys are building is you've even thought through that, right? I've seen the plans for the different phases where you have whole retreat centers for the family, for the person that's going through it, and thinking through it. And I know you're going through right now our family counseling program here on campus, right? As part of what you're doing. Tell us about that journey. How did that factor into it? How does school factor into what you guys are doing and helping out from there?
Well, I'm really grateful to be here. It's funny. I've been to a couple colleges, and the one thing that struck me that's so different about SEU is this. It's school second, but first the love of Jesus. Like every staff member I've encountered or educator I've encountered with SEU first says, "Hey, we love you. It's going to be okay. We're going to figure this out together. And then also, where's your paper now?"
And by the way, get that paper.
Which has been incredible, right? To just be a part of. But that factors in because obviously we need qualifications to be able to do what we're doing. And so it has been an incredible privilege to be able to come and do my master's program here and be a part of this. And also for you all to come out and recognize what we're doing and how it is a little bit different, and solidifying that from a clinical standpoint for Hope is Alive is going to be life-changing for us. And so just being able to be a part of it has been such a blessing for me, and it's going to impact so many lives because we want no barrier to stand in the way. And this is removing one of the barriers.
I love it. So good. And I hope you realize we love doing things different.
Yes.
And how you're doing it, we just love the way you've shaped this. And I know you're developing curriculum for your ministry. Tell us a little bit about that.
I would love to. So we have at Hope is Live called the Hope is Live Recovery Model, which is really the basis of our treatment model, if you will, at Hope is Alive. And it's really based around this idea that drugs and alcohol are just a symptom of the problem. Like, yes, you can stop. And that was my first thought when Lance came to me. It was like, just stop using drugs. right? And the truth of the matter is it had nothing to do with drugs. Drugs and alcohol just numbed the problem. It was the last resort. And so what we found is really this model that says, hey, we need to work through every aspect. And what we find right below kind of drugs and alcohol is what we call process addictions, emotional addictions, behavioral addictions, things like codependency, things like sex and love relationships, control, perfectionism, even eating disorders and gambling and cutting and all the kind of things that we see right now pop up. Those are behaviors, gaming, that we see prior to someone really reaching out. And those are just, again, another way to calm any sort of anxiety, trauma that we've been through. And so what we're trying to do at Hope is Alive is get them back to their complete self, who God created them to be when they were born. And he said the world needed you, right? And I need you to create a specific purpose on this earth, or else we would not be here. And getting them to believe that through all of the moments, what we call it kind of the black hole moment, the thing that happened where we realized, is there something wrong with me? Or why would this have happened to me? And being able to work back through that all the way to, the God-given purpose of who we are and who we're created to be. And so that's kind of what our curriculum is built around, facilitating that whole process. And so they're with us a lot. We have Bible studies coming. We have all these kind of things that help us facilitate that. But every day, that's what we're working towards, is really getting back to their complete self.
I love it.
And I'll just say one of the most successful parts of the ministry is the success rate of those that come to the homes. And just to brag on this curriculum, what we realize is you're treating an addict in a way that was never treated before. You would oftentimes deal with the symptoms, right? What she has written and what we've developed is you're dealing with these underlying issues that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. Relationships with other human beings is always going to be there. You're going to have a spouse. You're going to have a boss. You're going to have a brother. You're going to have a sister. Sex and love addiction issues are always going to be a part of your life. So you can remove yourself from the dispensary, from the bar, from the crack house, honestly, from the streets. But you can't remove yourself from relationships. So what I have seen from outside looking in, because I'm like visionary, fundraiser out front, she's written this program, and what it's done is it's helped people learn how to be in healthy relationships. And not get overwhelmed with all the things that can come with disappointments and trauma from relationships. And they're able to work through that with healthy coping mechanisms, life skills, a newfound relationship with Jesus, a community around them, and purpose in their hands. Then when stuff hits, you don't have to go back to what you used to go through, because you have this healthy coping mechanism and you have these people around you. That's what her program has done to help change people's lives. And that's why you have an 80% success rate from those that have come through this program. So you extrapolate some of those things and you put it back again on day one in the Healing Center. And you combine a few more programs that she's writing, and we believe it's going to be life-changing, world-changing, and we're excited about it.
Oh, man. Well, we're privileged to hear so much about it, and we have all of our team who's had a chance to spend time with you, and I know several came out, and I was supposed to be there, but I had a scheduling conflict, but I definitely want to get out there. And but they've fallen in love, and it was especially with Hope is Alive, and just want you both to know SCU is absolutely committed to coming alongside Hope is Alive, just being a support, encouragement, and resource in every way that we can to continue what God started through your lives, through your experiences, for His glory and honor in so many other lives. So privileged to have you on this podcast to hear about it.
We feel the same way, and we feel like the future is really bright. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, and we will at a later date. I just want you to know that she's walking around on the Zoom screen, holding the thing, cooking dinner with the I mean, I just want you to know, you can make it work as an adult who has a full-time job, full-time, 2 babies at home, writing curriculum for a new thing.
You can do it. That's right.
Make it happen. I'm praising her and blessing her because it's not easy, but she's doing it. And so thank you for the chance to be able to do it.
We're excited. We can't wait to shake your hand across graduation and go from there.
I will be there. I will be there.
We're looking forward to it.
That's cool.
Thank you guys for being on the show. And if you want to stay up to date with Allie and Lance, you can follow them on Instagram at Lance Lang and at Life of AVL. Life of AVL, that's the handle, right?
That is.
That's
I'm
the handle.
Impressed by you right now.
Oh, yeah. They did it right on the backside. Yep. You can also follow Lance on X and LinkedIn at Lance Lang. And also, if you want to stay up to date with everything with the ministry Ministries. You can check out their YouTube channel at Hope is Alive Ministries. Lots of great videos, lots of great things coming out of there. You can also go to their website, hopeisalive.net, for more resources and to get involved. And your books are available everywhere books are sold, or just
Amazon.
on the website?
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yep.
Yep. Amazon.
Excellent.
So
Are
make
they
sure.
still $12?
Probably.
Yeah, that's good.
Who knows?
There. Make sure you check it out. And thank you so much for listening to the Framework Leadership Podcast.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Framework Leadership. If you're watching on YouTube, now would be a great time to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you can get incredible leadership content right to your YouTube feed. You can also check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts every single week, Framework Leadership. And if you love great email newsletters, and I know I do, make sure you check out keningle.com and subscribe to the Framework Leadership newsletter. It's an incredible piece of content we put out every single week of amazing leadership resources right to your inbox. Make sure you check it out. You can also follow us on Instagram at Kent_Ingle, at Dr. Michael Steiner, on X at Kent Ingle, and on Facebook at Kent.Ingle. Stay up to date on all the incredible things happening on the podcast and at Southeastern University. We love you guys, and we love our followers and our subscribers. Thank you so much for listening to the Framework Leadership Podcast.